I would say the best practice right there is getting whatever you can have connected to your CRM automatically to feed data into it, like your forms on your website to your CRM needs to happen automatic. And it needs to get assigned to somebody that's responsible.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Welcome to the Automated Lawyer Podcast. I am one of your hosts, John Fritz, and I'm joined with my co-host, Dan Schnirbush. Dan, what's going on today?
Oh man, John, it's been a busy morning. We are getting all of our children out the door for some final summer celebrations. They're going to a petting zoo thing. We have this zoo called Joel Safari here in St. Charles area. And if you've ever seen that Tiger King show, my understanding is it's a little bit like that. But I think it's safe for kids. So they're going to have a good time this morning. How about yourself? What's going on?
I am excited today. Today is obviously Friday. We are in that kind of gap between summer camps ending for kids and the start of the school year. So there's a lot of stuff going on right now outside of the law firm world. But I'm very excited today because we have an awesome guest. Dan, you want to go ahead and introduce our guest today?
Yeah, we are here with Kelsey Bratcher today. And some of you may know Kelsey. He's from the owner of Hired Gun Solutions. And Kelsey's been around for a while. Like he's been in a lot of the Maximum Lawyer communities where John and I are big fans of what's going on there. And he's an expert in CRM, in legal automation, and one of the big voices in these online kind of tech forward legal communities, especially. And he's been working for, I think he said since 2013, was it, Kelsey?
Yeah, 2013 is when I started my business.
There we go. 2013 with Hired Gun Solutions. He's been implementing CRM systems for hundreds or we may be even to the thousands of law firm clients and other businesses at this point. And so we thought he would be a great person to come on and talk more about CRM and automation, which is kind of one of our favorite topics here on the podcast. So welcome, Kelsey.
Thank you for the welcome. I appreciate that. And I want to say it is over 1,000 businesses, but I'd say closer to 100 law firms.
Okay, there we go.
Can't know the exact number. Less than 100. I think it's around 50, 60, something.
There we go. Very cool. So I understand. What kind of led you to founding your Hired Gun Solutions organization? What was kind of the progress when you decided, hey, I'm gonna start my own thing? How'd you get to that point?
Healthy disrespect for authority in the workplace. I've never been fired from a job, but I've been employed since I was 18. But I didn't like having a boss that would tell me what to do and didn't understand what I did, or that would have to just dictate how I needed to spend my time. And I didn't like taking orders, I guess would be the way to say it. And so I've always had like an entrepreneurial itch. I just didn't really have the pathways to connect it until I was older. And so I was fortunate to work at a company where all the customers were small business owners. And that's kind of convincing me, like, this asshole can do it, then I can for sure do this. Like, I'm way smarter than he is. There's a little bit of my arrogance, but that's what drove me to do it. Also, at the time, I believed in the myth that I could work less and make more than what I was doing. And I quickly learned that was not the case. I mean, at this point, it's balanced out. But when I started my business, it was like 100-hour weeks for years, right? Yeah. And so I did make more money, but like it was not less than 40 hours a week.
Sure. Yeah, that is one of the things that gets hidden. A lot of entrepreneurs, I think that it's going to be sunshine and rainbows, and it's a lot of work. And it can't for a lot of people. It ends up that way, but it is a lot of work for a lot of other people. It doesn't. So definitely applaud the guts there. So and you started Hired Gun having worked at Infusionsoft, so you were already in this kind of CRM world. So I guess, was that kind of the natural bridge into here's what I'm going to do for people?
Yeah. So they are now called Keep. They're still around. They're dying, in my opinion. People are leaving that product, but that's how I was implementing for about 3.5 years. I joined the sales floor to learn how to sell. I was a pre-sales engineer for the last 1.5 years that I was at that company. And so it was like the natural progression. The only other skill set that I would have stayed employed for would have been to go into some sort of leadership capacity. And that wasn't going to happen. And so I figured I would learn that on my own dollar, I guess would be the way to say it. But I was paid to learn how to implement. I was paid to learn how to sell. And so here I am 10 years later, almost a little over 10 years later. And I've changed directions quite a bit from software wise is what I like to use and the types of products that I work with, but it's pretty much very similar to what I've done for the past 10 years.
Change directions quite a few. You and me both.
Yeah.
I know I have.
It's-
I started in Lawmatics and Locus and moved to Monday.com, and now I'm in Airtable, and who knows what tomorrow will bring. But
I'm pretty sure I could probably convince you a couple of products that are pretty good if they're
yeah,
what's for done here.
yeah, I have.
The greatest golfer.
I have no doubt.
I don't want to hear about any new products though, because
Right.
I told my team that I was, they actually told me do not implement any new technology within the next year, and I still got about 6 or 8 months left on that timeline. So
There you go.
I'm sticking with Pipedrive and Filevine for right now for my main two, and although Filevine just sent me an email yesterday that said that prices were increasing, again each year. So now I'm like,
Yeah.
So tell me
Yeah.
about new CRMs right now.
That's fun.
So you started Hired Gun, and you've worked with, you describe maybe a little less than 100 law firms. Is there anything different about working with law firms from other industries? Have you noticed any trends or idiosyncrasies that we do differently, or anything like that?
There's the fundamental basics of it are generate leads, follow up with leads, convert them to clients or customers, and then provide them with a service. Like that's common amongst a lot of service-based business. I've oversimplified what that means for a law firm, right? But that's kind of the basics of it. So I would say that there isn't a huge difference between that and like getting your air conditioning installed, right? The urgency may fluctuate, right? Like, so in the situation with the HVAC company, I have a guy coming to install HVAC probably in the next couple of days. So I'm calling my air conditioning's out. I'm probably gonna, unless I don't have money, I'm going to get a new air conditioning or get the one that I have fixed, right? Personal injury is probably very similar, but like you have someone who's got a different type of case that's maybe not as urgent as like being in an accident. It's going to take longer to follow up with that person to convince them that they need services, or maybe they need to justify the money value, whatever that looks like. I would say is probably the kind of the direction that I would say is very similar to other service-based businesses.
Yeah.
And especially business to consumer type services. I know that's not universally true for law firms, but most of the clients that I work with we're dealing with consumers, I guess would be the way to describe it.
Yeah. And that's what I've kind of seen is one of the big mindset shifts that a lot of attorneys have to go through is going from attorney doing legal work when you found a firm to right now I have to worry about things like, sales pipeline and stuff like that. And I am under the impression, I could be wrong, that other industries maybe come into it knowing that that's part of the job. But I think a lot of attorneys don't. They've been told this message of do good work and you'll get clients. And to a point, that's true. But you do need to think of it still as a sales process, as a marketing system. And I think that gets lost sometimes.
I would say that there's like we'll call it professional services. So like accountants, lawyers, maybe medical, like providers, dentists, chiropractors, these types of businesses. Not so much like medical doctors, because that's a different kind of structure. But like if a chiropractor starts a business, they don't know that they just think I'm going to go in there and start making adjustments to people and everything's going to be good. They don't need that. They don't know that they have to understand. I think they think they're credentialed. And so that is enough.
Yeah.
And it's not, oftentimes.
Yeah.
You have to be persuasive. You have to understand how marketing, how to get leads, all these things. And, those usually come way later. Well, I knew all those things before I started my business, partially because of my background, but like, how else am I going to get customers unless I learn how to do these things?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point. Because I know that when I started my business or my law firm, it was the same thing. Hey, I'm going to show up and do legal work, and then you understand that there's all these other things that you have to do, especially on the sales side. I want to ask you a couple questions about CRMs just in general. When it comes to your non-legal clients and your legal clients, when it comes to CRMs, are you seeing a lot of crossover when it comes to the use of non-legal based CRMs, in the legal space?
Yeah.
as opposed to, I think typically, historically there was, lawyers using CRMs created for lawyers, right? And then obviously CRMs created for, everybody else. It feels like we're transitioning to lawyers are getting outside the box of the legal or the lawyer-based CRMs and looking for different products out there that are traditional for businesses, right?
100%. So I would say like a lot of businesses have their like niche specific CRMs, like painters, dentists, all these different companies had their like industry specific products, in which they're usually either, like a much larger, like your practice management, like Fileline, right? You use that to actually do the services that you provide. And, that's unique to lawyers a lot of times. I mean, there's some overlap in other industries, but that's kind of, you're not going to have another option unless you get crazy, right? But like the actual, we'll say CRM stuff that exists in the marketplace, like broadly, is way better than anything that could be created in the legal space. I mean, there's some features that are in like the biggest thing that I've noticed is like the language they use to describe things, like PNC or prospective new client or whatever you want to call it. Like it's a lead and then it becomes a prospect or whatever school of thought you believe in. There's some functionality, like for example, getting a representation agreement signed that's sometimes baked in, but these things are easily overcome in a broader spectrum. I would say the only advantage that like Legal Tech CRM has is the integration with like practice management software, which is CleoGrow, Lead Docket, Lawmatics. Like these have native integrations with a lot of the popular practice management software. And so that's the only advantage that you're really getting by using legal tech. And you're severely like hindering your ability to do other things that would be just like not even a second thought stuff that you would just expect in the marketplace at this point is so common that like you wouldn't even think of it as a feature because it's just everywhere. Right. And that's not true about legal tech CRM. And that's kind of where I mean, I would never use any in the legal. There's not one product in the legal space for CRM and sales and marketing that is anywhere near good enough that I would. And the other aspect of it too is it's often more expensive because it's specialized, and then you got the lawyer tax built onto it, right? Where you could go outside and buy a product like without talking to salespeople, half the price, and it does more and it's better supported. And so these are the kinds of things you have to balance. And so I just I would recommend staying away from it altogether. And then what's worse than a legal tech CRM is like your practice management and trying to use it for sales. It's going to be terrible.
Yeah. I want to back up for a second, just to kind of make sure that everybody who's listening understands like what we're talking about. So first of all, like when we're talking about CRM, we're talking about customer relationship management software. So generally speaking, when I'm thinking about CRM, and Kelsey, I'd be interested to get your take on this too, and John. But when I'm thinking about CRM, I'm thinking predominantly the focus, the key, like core functions, like what is it? Why should I care about this? Is focusing on, a little bit of marketing, like the front end, the very front end, sometimes with email focus, and tracking your marketing sources, like bringing leads in, where did they come from? Doing a little bit of that. And then managing that sales pipeline, that sales relationship of talking to the leads. What did we do? Did we get them closed? Have they been sent an agreement? Have they paid us any fee? That kind of like that process of converting them from a lead to a client. To me, that's kind of the core. That's the core focus of a CRM, and that's most of, in my opinion, that's like 90% of what it should do. It can do other things, but as long as it does that core set of things, to me, that's like a capable CRM. And to your point, obviously there are things that do this better than others at lower price points, and that's definitely true. But how do you see the role of a CRM? Why should lawyers care about this? For those that don't, and they're still like working out of like a Google Sheet or something, why should they care about a CRM in the context of this conversation?
So why somebody should care about a CRM, especially in the context of a law firm, is that the amount of volume of leads that you're going to get. I mean, this is generally true. There's no way that an individual person will be able to have the organizational skills to stay in touch with all of them, in addition to the time that's required and any other data parameters that you would want to need or want to or need to pay attention to, right? Like you had mentioned marketing related, like lead source tracking and things like that. It just starts to become overwhelming. And then the quality of your data starts to degrade if you're not using it effectively, right? Like a spreadsheet, you can type an email address in any cell on a spreadsheet. In a CRM, you have data validation that will force an email address to be an email address field and so forth. And so as far as like why you should care about it is it's going to give you the ability to, like, if you're going to invest time, money, and resources into something like marketing or trying to get new clients, you'll need to have broad visibility into like what that process will look like. And the CRM products are the tool that exists that will allow you to do it with the greatest of ease. And so with a little bit of discipline and, like being in, like, we'll say active management, you can pay attention to what's going on in your CRM, what your employees are doing, what potential clients are on deck to be signing up this week. These are the kinds of things that you can easily find in a CRM product.
Yeah, that's a great point, Kelsey. I think that the legal community, at least when lawyers are starting practices, there's this big emphasis on case management software, right? You got to, which case management software are you going to go with? And nobody really talks about this, the leads management CRM. And I know in my own practice that, I went years without having any sort of leads management CRM. And we were doing exactly what you're talking about, Kelsey, trying to, somehow organizationally keep track of all these leads. And to be honest with you, a lot of those leads would just fall off, right? They didn't call us back. We didn't call them back, something along the way, there would be a disconnect and they'd find somebody, a different law firm. And especially in today's world when, you're calling, there's so many leads out there coming in. If they, depending on your practice type, if they, you don't respond to them in real time or have an automation that's going to respond to them in real time, same day, they're calling the next law firm and you're losing that lead. So it's crazy.
I have hired a number of lawyers and law firms to help me over the course of the time that I've been self-employed, for various, nothing bad. I've never been in litigation or anything like, but you need the services of a law firm every now and then. And, like if you need services that are related to like your business or like transitioning your business from the state of Arizona to Texas, it's not exactly the easiest thing to do without knowledge. And so I went down the journey of like, I had talked to like 4 or 5 different firms, 3 of which never called me back at all. Right. And I had one call me back and then scheduled an appointment out for a consultation like 3 weeks later. And then the 4th one was like, yeah, here, this is what we do. Here's how you get signed up. Like they had at least a basic process in place for getting set up. And then the service started immediately. I hired one firm and they didn't get back to me. Like I hired them, signed the thing, paid. And then I didn't hear anything for 3 weeks. And then I emailed them like, yeah, so what's going on with this? Cause like, I need this to be done every month that goes forward. Now I have to pay income tax for that month in the state of Arizona. I want you to get this done. And so, I ended up firing them and then hired this other firm. And then it was just like easy breathe. And like, they had everything in place. They had online marketing, they're running ads, they have it feeding into a CRM. I got called back immediately. I was getting email communications. I got texted. Like these are things that are happening that they're not hard to do. You just have to do them. Right. And, that's kind of been my experience as a client. And, I've helped people build enough stuff that it's not hard to do. Like all the stuff that I just mentioned is like out of the box, normal functionality for a lot of these types of products. It's just, you have to be, on top of it. Right. And I think that one of the things that I mentioned is if you're paying for traffic to come to your website through ads, through Meta or Google, like you have to have immediate response because otherwise someone's going to skip you and you're just paid for that to happen.
Yeah.
As opposed to like maybe a referral, you might have a little leeway for when you get back to them. When someone just clicked on a link on a website and filled out a form, then you paid for that to happen, $50, $100 a click or whatever the hell, depending on what practice area you're in.
Yeah.
Like you better have an immediate system that's in place. Ideally it's automated and that it's self-service enough for that person to at least get in touch with your firm as fast as possible.
Yeah, it definitely. And on that topic of paid traffic, like, if you don't have a CRM, like tracking that source, And ideally, if you're using Google click ads or, Facebook ads or something, you can set that up so that that person's click, the ID associated with their click gets passed into your CRM, so that you're tracking that particular click to that particular client. And then when they convert, you can pass that ID back to Google or Facebook and say, hey, that person that clicked our ad, 3 days ago, well, they converted for X amount of dollars. You can actually start to measure the ROI on your campaigns. And the only way that you can do that is by having a place to store and track that lead source. And CRMs are extreme as kind of the first touch point with the sales and marketing process of your firm is a great place to be tracking that stuff and measuring that conversion. And a lot of that stuff, it sounds complicated, but a lot of it you can do in just Zapier or like very basic automation tools to pass that data in and then pass it back out. It's really, really powerful stuff for tracking your paid ad performance.
100%. I would recommend not doing those things unless you have something like this in place, something like what we're describing. Do not run paid traffic unless you have some kind of CRM in place and a follow-up system that you can actually leverage to take advantage of that money that you're.
So let's talk for a minute about like best practices. We're implementing a CRM. What does that mean? Like, what should it look like for an average law firm? You talked about at a high level of generality, we have, kind of leads and we sign them up and we convert them to paying clients and we send them an engagement. At that higher level, there may be some nuances from one firm to another, but generally speaking, like in your opinion, what is a, and having seen it from a consumer perspective, what does a good sequence look like? What should that glide path look like for new clients coming in?
That's a good question. So you have to think about what are the main touch points that need to happen, right? So you have your most immediate thing when a brand new contact gets added in your system. And then you have like what's going to happen over the course of, say, time, right? So and we're going to talk about like your website interaction, probably, or the phone interaction. These are the two most common where leads are coming in through a form on your site, or they are coming in via the phone, right? So if they're coming in off your site, it's all too common for people to have gravity forms or something like this, where they're getting an email that has information about a lead and like why they're calling, and it's sitting in your inbox. And you're the only one that has access to that inbox. And you have to forward that to your front desk person or your intake person if you have one. And now they have to look at the email, then take action. And then maybe they'll hand enter it into your system, maybe, right? Or they'll just delete the email if it's trash or whatever. And they call them and they decide, oh, they didn't answer the phone, so I'm moving on. Now that is totally lost. So I would say the best practice right there is getting whatever you can have connected to your CRM automatically to feed data into it, like your forms on your website to your CRM, needs to happen automatically. And it needs to get assigned to somebody that's responsible. They need to be given a task, and ideally email and or text messages sent to the person saying, hey, this is Kelsey with XYZ Law Firm. We have your information. We'd love to talk to you about getting set up with a consultation or whatever, right? The call to action you want is the thing that you need to have happen next, which is more usually some type of, I don't want to say a consultation with the lawyer with the name on the building, but someone at the firm that's probably not as expensive time-wise to talk to that person, at least vet them out. Right. That's the first thing you should have done, right? So the chain of events of getting that lead information into your CRM, having those things go out automatically so that the client knows that they're going and that they have at least some chance of doing the next thing you want automatic without you having to do it. That would be the best practice. And like that is missing from like, I would say 90% of clients that I start with. And I don't want to, I'm not going to name any names. I don't want to throw anyone under the bus. I'm not saying everybody doesn't do that, but it's very common for that gravity forms, email to an inbox, forward that to somewhere else. Maybe they're sophisticated and they have a rule to auto forward it to somebody or they authenticated it, but it's not going into their CRM. It's not going to get followed up with. You're not gonna be able to track that to the same extent that you want to. And so that's kind of the big thing there. And then as far as phones, having, an answering service is like I would say this is the first thing that people do is like, somebody has to answer the phone. They're going to get Smith, your Ruby receptionist, Lex reception. one of the many reception services, and then they'll just do the same problem. An email comes into an inbox, someone has to read it, then they have to forward it along and do all this extra stuff. You could have that go directly into your CRM, right? If you're using one of those services, and basically do the same exact thing. And you could get even more picky because at least I have some discernment. This person's a new prospect. This person's an existing client, whatever information you're learning from those services. And I would say that's your best practice. Now, one layer deeper is if you're a badass and you have a good phone system and a good CRM, those will work together. And so when people call in or when you make calls using your CRM, all that information and activity is tracked automatically. And so you can actually see, oh, my intake person is making 150 calls a week. But this is the stats that we're achieving with 100. Let's see if we can bump that up to 200 calls a week. And these are the kinds of stats that you will be able to do if you kind of set this type of system up.
And just to say something there real quick is that the stuff that Kelsey, you're talking about, about making these connections and having your phone system, connect with and do all this. It's not hard to set up. It is super easy to set up. I mean, we're talking about Zapier connections to get all your emails going into your CRM, and then having adding an add-on within that CRM that connects with your phone service. I mean, it sounds like it sounds like a little bit complicated on some level, and people might be like, well, that's just way too much for me. I don't want to take the time or the expense, but it can be achieved very, very easily and super cost efficient when it comes to that as well.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. And
the stuff that has never been more accessible to do this kind of stuff.
Yeah. I was just gonna say if you don't want to do it, there are lots of people out there who do know how to do it and who can help you set this stuff up. So what do you think as far as kind of we're going through that sales cycle, we're getting people signed up. Our process is very similar. We do have Smith, and they have a nice Zapier connection that pushes everything directly into our CRM. And here's a props to one. We may differ in opinion on this, but one legal specific tool, Lawmatics, does a pretty good job. We have them set up. Our glide path is just beautiful. I'm sure you can do it in other tools, but when somebody calls in, they get a booking link and an email and a text that says, "Hey, schedule an appointment." Or if they're on this phone with Smith, they can schedule them directly, and they start getting a nice email drip and things like that. And we get them on the calendar. So we're on the call. What have you seen as far as like what level of efficiency can you achieve? You're on the call with a client. We've still got to do a few things yet before they're a client. We've got to get an engaged sign. We've got to get them paid. Like how efficient have you been able to get that final workflow with your clients?
Yeah. So the way that I've done it is you're capturing information from the client, answering questions, building out like a preliminary, like this is what our client situation looks like, your intake, right? And you'll need to be able to generate a representation agreement of some kind to get out to the client. And ideally you can do that while you're on the phone so that you can confirm that they got it. And then you can even go as far as to have them sign it. And then once they sign it, or depending on what order you like things to be, some people want to do an invoice or like a trust request. And, these are send them at the same time, or you can do them in whatever order you want. But I would always go engagement letter first or representation agreement first, then invoice / trust request / whatever you need to do. And all these things can be tied together very tightly so that they happen. Like as you send a representation agreement, you can see via like a tool like PandaDoc will tell you that someone saw it there, they viewed it, right? It'll tell you when they sign it. When they sign it, that's the trigger to move things along in the CRM so that we know this person is signed. The next step is for them to pay. So then the invoice can get automatically created with the product or service and the amount of money that they need to pay. And they're automatically sent a link, be it ideally text message because they're on the phone. Then they click the thing, they make the payment. You could have all that happen on the phone or collecting the payment while they're on the call. I mean, that was actually another scenario. I got off the phone with the lawyer. Oh yeah, we'll get you over that information. It takes like 2 hours to get a PDF for me to sign with preview. And then I have to send them back. You know what I mean? Like I can do that, but like, can you expect a 55-year-old that's never really been into tech, to go through all those steps to make sure that you can get your representation signed the way that you want it? And, arguably you might have any technical issues with that person, but the reality of the situation is that you're probably not going to have it if you're using some sort of document signing tool. and you're probably not going to have issues collecting payment online because everybody buys from Amazon and Shopify. So an online payment is not the end of the world. And these are not like the things I'm describing they're not hard to do, but you have to make certain choices in the way you do things in order to facilitate these types of things. And let's say the goal is to do all of that, but maybe at the moment your current setup will only allow you to generate a representation agreement against someone's hand. That's going to be way better than most of your competitors are going to be able to do. They're going to be doing some janky stuff like sending PDFs that need to be signed in preview, or like I have to get Adobe to do, right? And then send it back. Like that's not as good. And so you would want to have, that's like as far as efficiency is concerned, I like to build a system whenever possible that you could theoretically one call close a client if you were to get them on the phone.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's a great point.
The motto that I was being a little bit of a jerk to a vendor that I was working with, where I'm just trying to get them to send me some new portfolio inserts for my estate planning binders. And they're like, oh, you're going to have to call in on the phone to send in your credit card information to make payment for this set of portfolio inserts. And we've been going back and forth, like playing phone tag now for like 2 weeks to get this set of binder inserts done. And I said, number one rule, don't make it difficult for people to pay you money. And like, there's so much that you can do there with the CRM is just, like you described, I mean, getting that engagement out automatically, getting that invoice out automatically. I mean, that can happen. That's doable. Like, how much time are you saving? And like, how much higher is your close rate going to be if your people, if stuff is happening that fluidly, that efficiently, that it makes effortless for people to give you their money. That's what this stuff is all about.
I can give you there was when I first implemented this type of thing for a law firm, their average close time for a deal or an opportunity or the thing you represents the prospect's journey went from 15 days on average to 4 days on average by implementing these types of things. I mean, we did all of them, but we shortened the sales cycle from 15 days to 4 days. And then we also increased the close rate from like 18% to like 20. And that's a 5% jump, without changing anything there's no language or sales training or like customer service. Like there's no like team training or personnel changes that needed to happen to do that. And this was, maybe a couple weeks worth of effort. And so that kind of sets the tone for like how much better it could be if you just did these things smoother. Like smooth is fast. That's kind of the way you want to think about it.
Kelsey, I had it's kind of one of our last topics here to touch on. For our listeners, we're talking a lot of high level stuff about CRMs and these different tech products. What are some of the things that you like specifically when it comes to tech products that are available in the marketplace? When it comes to CRMs and, just different tools that people can use to, fill in the blanks with those kind of different pieces of the puzzle and that client leads management. What are some of the things that you like right now? And what are some of the things I would say that are kind of on the low end, easy to implement, cost effective? If somebody doesn't have a lead management CRM, what's something they should consider out there?
Okay. So, and John, I know that we've talked about this, but for CRM is Pipedrive. Like if you don't have one, Pipedrive is the best possible option you can get for first CRM. And it's probably going to be the only one you will ever need if you were to implement and invest time into developing it, learning how the product works, how to build a sales pipeline, how to follow up leads correctly. They're going to give you all the information you need to know. And the product is easy to do. Like one thing I'm going to say is I'm a fan of high quality, high polish software. And so you have certain kinds of software that meets that criteria, like Pipedrive. You use project management software as Asana. Airtable meets this. Like it is a highly polished experience. There's no janky weirdness when you use these products. Like if you were to use some legal tech or like lower end CRM products, there's just like this flow dirtiness to it. And you can tell when you use a lot of them. Another example is Calendly is a really high quality, high polished product. And I enjoy using, because usually not only do they have a high polish, but they also integrate well with a lot of other products. They have, for technical reasons, I like, open API where it's like, I can do anything that I need to do. There's no restrictions there. these are things that I look for personally. And then I also like chat support that is good. And so I will engage with chat support early on, and hopefully they will answer the phone and like be able to engage me and answer my questions without huge difficulty. And these are things that I look for. I also look at their documentation. So like when you go to look for help, like how easy is it to find the information you're looking for? And all the products that I listed off, I mean, they kind of go hand in hand together. Another example is PandaDoc for document signing. It is a high quality product. Like there's a lot of polish put in there. They've moved out a lot of the like jankiness that comes with using software, like fields refreshing automatically. There's a lot of like on page single app type stuff going on. It is enjoyable to use these products. And so that's one of the things that I try to do. And whenever I can, I try to find software that feels good to use daily. Right. And then that's kind of one of my first criteria. And I would actually encourage, because it makes learning the software easier to do, even if you're non-technical. And one thing I will say, Pipedrive is not a technical product, right? When you're using it, it is more of I have a business need. I want this software to do it. You don't have to go learn all this crazy technical stuff to make it effective and be able to have it make a difference in your day-to-day operations of your business.
I would agree with that 100%, Kelsey. I mean, I think Pipedrive is fantastic. I think it was an absolute game changer for my law firm, and I could see it being a game changer for any business out there that is not tracking leads currently. With that said, I think we are getting very close to time. So let's do our tech tip of the episode or tech tip of the week. Kelsey, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, I'll go ahead. I mean, I usually say this every time. I keep harping on it until I don't see it as a problem anymore, but scheduling, some kind of scheduling tool, Calendly, Acuity scheduling, there's a bunch of different options you have. Calendly is probably going to be your most pleasurable one to use. It's a little pricey, but get a scheduling tool in your business. It's going to save you time and headache of trying to negotiate meeting with people. It's easy to implement, very low technical requirements. And I would encourage everyone, if you're not, to do it. And if you are, look at how you might be able to use it more than the way you are.
Awesome. Dan, what do you got for us this week?
This week, I can't remember if I may have mentioned this one before, but I'm going to mention it again because it just came up again. And that is getting control of your data as a lawyer. A lot of these platforms that you have your stuff stored in, your Filevine and Clio in my case, and Smokeball and all these places, it is very, very difficult to get your data back out of a lot of these platforms. Like they were not built to smoothly pull that stuff out. I had a friend yesterday telling me that he's like fed up with his platform and he's looking at moving to a new one. And he had to get a quote from a third-party company to help with data migration. And it was gonna be like $9,000 just to move his data from one platform to another. And I'll give you an example of how what I've been experimenting with. So I found this tool called SmartSuite, and I thought it was really cool. And it's a lot like Airtable, but it's got a lot of nice features. And I wanted to tool around with it with some real data. I was able to migrate my Airtable data over to SmartSuite, like fully correctly formatted. All the relationships were still there. All the contacts were still linked to the correct matters and everything in about 15 minutes. I just started the import and it just smoothly moved over. I did the exact same thing in another backend tool called Xano, Xano, very cool tool. It took about 15 minutes to push everything over, perfectly clean, didn't have to spend a dime. And that's because I have control over my data. Like getting control over your data. And what I mean by that is like putting it in a format or in a backend system where you control the structure of it, you control the access to it, and you get to decide how and when it gets pushed anywhere you want. It can save you so much headache and give you so much more control over your automation and your business data. So that's my tip for the week.
Awesome.
100%.
So my tip is right now we're kind of hyper focusing on KPIs and having that be at top of mind for all of our team members. So my tech tip of the week is to implement some sort of software or just anything tech, a tech tool that will help you present your KPIs to your team members in a nice visual way. They can see everything they're tracked on. They can see the other team members being tracked, whether it's as simple as a Google Sheet where your information gets pulled in from your CRM or somewhere else, We use Zoho Analytics to do a dashboard, and it pulls it zaps data right from Filevine into Zoho. Zoho has a nice presentation, a visual presentation. I'm able to share a link. Everybody can go in, in our weekly meetings and take a look at the KPIs for the week. And it's really, really helpful for, I'm a very visual person. I love the dashboards. So it's really helpful for myself and everybody else to see, where are we benchmarking at this week? Where are we exceeding goals, or are we falling short? And how do we make up for that when it comes to productivity? So
Guys,
that is my tech of the week.
Thank you so much, John. Thank you, Kelsey. So if you're watching on YouTube, remember to like and subscribe. If you are on Apple Podcasts, give us a 5-star review there. That's how people can help. You can help people find our podcast and learn more. If you want to take the discussion offline, go ahead and check out the Facebook group at Legal Tech Collective, where you can continue to ask questions, engage with the community. And with that, that's it for this week. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Hey,
Thank you.
real quick, Dan, I wanted to ask Kelsey. Kelsey, if people want to contact you for some more information about what you do, or anything related to your practice, what's a good way to get in touch with you?
.com is probably the best way to do that.
Awesome.
Or if
Well,
we're on
I
Facebook,
know you're
that's fine.
awesome. Well, thanks again, Kelsey, for being here. We appreciate it. Everybody have a great rest of the week and weekend.
All right, sounds
All right.
good. Thank you,
Take it
guys.
easy, gentlemen.
Thanks for
Bye-bye.